Colonel Simmons, thank you for saving my life. The moment those words left his mouth, the entire ballroom fell silent. Even the string quartet stopped mid-note. He was kneeling in front of me, his tuxedo crisp, his boutonniere trembling slightly with each breath, as hundreds of eyes turned from the stage to the back corner table where I sat, where they had seated me, near the restroom. I didn't move. My spine straightened on instinct, not pride. Old habit. I looked down at him, the groom, my sister's perfect fiancé, kneeling in front of me like a soldier would in a memorial ceremony. At first I thought he was confused, mistaken, but then he raised his voice, just slightly, with clarity. "Ma'am, Colonel Alexandra Simmons, you saved me during Operation Dusthawk in Kabul. I owe you everything." Glass shattered somewhere. My mother's wine flute had slipped from her hand. My father blinked, mouth ajar. My sister, the bride, stood frozen at the altar, clutching her bouquet like a lifeline. I could feel the blood draining from every face in the room, and me, the invisible sibling, the security guard, the family's embarrassment, just breathed. One slow inhale, one exhale. They had spent their lives crafting a version of me they could tolerate, dismiss, ignore. And now, in the middle of their picture-perfect wedding, the truth stood taller than any of them. They never knew who I truly was. And by the time they did, it was already too late. People say childhood shapes who we become. I used to believe that was just a comforting phrase for people who wanted to blame their past. But when I look back at my own childhood, it wasn't a past. It was a blueprint, a carefully drawn map of where I was not allowed to go. My name is Alexandra Simmons, but growing up everyone just called me Lexi. Short, sharp, forgettable, like me. My older sister, Veronica, was the family's golden light. The one who danced in recitals, smiled in pageants, aced her piano tests. I was the girl who skinned her knees playing flag football with the neighbourhood boys. I was the girl who snuck books about war strategy into her backpack, while the others brought lip gloss and magazines. I don't remember a single moment when I was told, "We're proud of you." At 8, I was already used to being ignored at the dinner table. At 10, I learned how to do my own laundry because my mother said, "You're not helpless like Veronica." At 13, my father told me, "You're too tough to be likeable, that's not a good thing." But the memory that lodged deepest came when I turned 16. I had secretly applied for a military prep program out of state. It was everything I wanted: discipline, purpose, structure. When the acceptance letter came, I was trembling with excitement, but that night, my mother found it before I could tell anyone. She didn't yell, she didn't even raise her voice. She just looked at me, held up the letter, and calmly said, "So you want to wear boots and bark orders like a man?" Then she tore it in half. When I screamed, she grabbed her belt, not in rage, but in precision. 4 lashes, neat, deliberate. And my father? He watched from the doorway, arms crossed, and said, "You brought this on yourself, Lexi." I didn't cry that night, but I stopped speaking to either of them for 3 months. After that night, something in me shifted. I stopped asking for permission, stopped trying to be seen. Instead, I became invisible on my own terms. Veronica flourished, of course, senior prom queen, scholarship to study marketing in New York, the pride of the Simmons family. My mother printed her achievements and mailed them to every relative across the country. When I enlisted without a word to anyone, she didn't even ask what branch I chose. She just muttered, "At least we won't have to pay for college." The day I shipped off for basic training, no one saw me off. I stood on the curb outside our home with 1 duffel bag and a silent Uber driver. Veronica posted a photo on Instagram that morning about her new manicure. My father was in the garage fixing a leaky pipe. My mother vacuumed as I closed the door behind me. I remember standing at the edge of the airport terminal thinking, this is it. This is where I disappear. And I did. For 10 years. Not literally, but in every way that mattered to them. I rose through the ranks faster than most. I was good at what I did. Cold, analytical, composed. I didn't flinch. I didn't break. My commanding officers said I had the nerves of a bomb tech and the silence of a sniper. That made me laugh. The funny thing is, I never stopped writing letters home. I never sent them, of course, but I wrote them, hundreds of pages stuffed in journals locked away in my quarters. I imagined my mother reading them and feeling something. Regret, maybe. I imagined my sister hearing my name on the news, mentioned during a successful rescue operation, and pausing just for a second to wonder if it was me. They never did. The only time I heard from them was when Veronica got engaged. A glossy white envelope, no return address. Inside was a thin card with gold lettering and 3 sentences. Veronica Simmons is marrying Thomas Gray. Reception to be held at the Fairmont Hotel, Virginia. Lexi, you may bring 1 guest if you wish. They didn't even get my name right. Lexi, not Colonel Alexandra Simmons, not even Alex, just the girl they tried to erase. I almost threw the invitation away, not because it hurt, though it did, but because part of me had buried the idea that I'd ever belong again, in anything, to anyone. That card, with its cheap glitter and scripted font, wasn't just a wedding invite, it was a reminder, you're still the outsider. I placed it on my desk and stared at it for a week. Then a week turned into 2. It was around that time that I received a package. No name, no note, just a thin manila folder slid under my door at base housing. Inside were copies of emails, one thread in particular that stopped me cold. It was dated nearly 20 years ago. The military scholarship I was accepted into at 16, the one I believed was revoked due to an administrative error. Turns out it wasn't. The withdrawal letter had been sent from my family's IP address. A fabricated email was created, written to the admissions board, asking to cancel my enrollment, citing family concerns and sudden loss of interest. And who signed it? Veronica. Not forged in my name, not even a disguised attempt. She had written plainly, as Lexi's older sister, I must inform you she will no longer be attending. We've decided it's not in her best interest. We've decided. That moment shattered me more than the belt ever did, more than the silence at the airport, more than the years of pretending I didn't care. It wasn't just that they ignored me, it was that they actively erased me. What was it Veronica once said during Christmas dinner, when I came home in uniform for the first time, before I stopped visiting altogether? You look like you're in costume, Lexi. All that gear. You're not seriously still doing that army thing, are you? The whole table had laughed. I had smiled too, but I remember staring into the mashed potatoes, thinking, you made sure I'd never get there. And still, I did. They built a version of me they could look down on. And when reality didn't match, they tore the truth apart before it could grow. I folded the wedding invitation back into its envelope. This time I didn't cry. I just whispered to myself, I'll go. And I won't say a word. They'll say enough for both of us. The week before the wedding, I packed a small overnight bag with more calculation than emotion. A dark navy dress, simple shoulder-length sleeves, no shimmer, no labels, neutral heels, a compact powder case I hadn't used in years, no uniform, no medals, no insignia. I was going in as no one. There's a strange power in that. People only see what they expect. They expected Lexi, the failure, the footnote, the girl who didn't quite make it. So I'd let them have her. Let them dance in the delusion one last time. The invitation card was tucked in the side pocket, still creased where I had folded it too tightly. Then came the email, subject line, "Please remember." I opened it with half a breath. It was from Veronica. "Just a reminder that the ceremony is formal. Please don't wear anything distracting. Also, let's keep speeches to close family and bridal party. I want everything to go smoothly. Thanks." There was no greeting, no closing, just expectation. Wrapped in the same silk disdain she always dressed her words in. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. In the end, I simply shut the laptop and let the silence answer for me. The next day, I contacted an old friend from deployment, a quiet logistics officer named Donnelly, who now ran a private transportation company in DC. He owed me a favour. I requested an anonymous black sedan for 1 day only, unmarked, no questions asked. "Where to, Colonel?" he asked. "Virginia," I said. "Fairmont Hotel. No escort, no formality." "Understood." I hung up and stared at the screen door of my apartment, sunlight slicing through the blinds like stripes of judgment. My boots sat by the mat, polished, military standard. I left them there. Instead, I slipped into flats, let them think I came crawling. The Fairmont Hotel looked exactly as I expected, grand, marble floors, white floral arrangements the size of toddlers, and far too many people pretending to enjoy being watched. I arrived 10 minutes early, walked past the valet without handing over keys, and entered through the side entrance like a ghost. The reception hall was already buzzing. I spotted my family near the front, my father adjusting his tie, my mother fussing over centerpieces, Veronica, glowing in her white satin armour, surrounded by champagne flutes and curated compliments. No one noticed me, not really. A junior event coordinator greeted me at the guest table. "Name, please?" "Lexi Simmons." She scanned the list, frowned slightly, then nodded. "Of course, right this way." She led me to a table in the back, literally the farthest from the main stage, beside a swinging door labelled "Service Only." I sat beside an elderly couple who didn't look up from their soup. The place card at my seat read Lexi Simons. Plazero, wrong spelling, no rank, no seat upgrade, just another mistake. Intentional, I was sure. No one from my family came over. No wave, no smile. But I caught the glance Veronica threw my way, just long enough to verify I was where I belonged. On the outskirts, quiet, contained. I smiled. They thought I had returned to be tolerated. I ordered water when the waiter came around, even as the others requested wine, cocktails, laughter. The waiter skipped me when the hors d'oeuvres were passed out. By the time the music started, I had memorized the timing of the flower lights and could count every ivory panel on the ceiling. I didn't fidget. I didn't scan for allies. I just sat, still, watching. Not like a sister. Like a soldier in recon mode. They didn't know the woman who entered that room had led airstrikes in pitch-black silence. Had patched up bleeding men with one hand while firing with the other, had walked away from a helicopter crash with half a rib shattered and finished the mission anyway. To them, I was Lexi, the disappointment who used to dream too loudly and now sat quietly where she was told. And that was perfect, because sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon in the room. The first blow came with a smile. "Lexi," my mother said, crossing the room toward me like a hostess greeting an inconvenient guest. "You made it." She didn't hug me, she didn't touch me at all. Her perfume was sharp, roses and regret. "I was wondering if you'd be able to get the day off," she added, her voice bright and brittle. "Still working that warehouse job, right?" I didn't correct her. I just nodded once. Let her think I guarded pallets of soda cans. "Good," she said, already turning away. "Don't forget, no disruptions. This is Veronica's day." The second hit came at the table. As guests filtered in, I felt eyes graze over me with vague recognition. One woman leaned to her husband and asked, "Who is she again?" He replied, "Cousin, maybe, or, oh, the other sister." The other sister. Then Veronica floated in. Perfect posture, designer gown, a face sculpted for approval. She made her rounds, table by table, cheeks touched, air kisses exchanged. When she reached my row, she paused dramatically and clapped her hands. "Everyone," she announced, "this is my sister Lexi. She does security, like for buildings and events. Super important stuff, right?" She said it as if she were describing a mall cop from a movie. People chuckled politely. One man actually raised his glass and said, "Well, hey, someone's got to keep Costco safe." Laughter followed. Someone whispered, "Bless her heart." I took a sip of my water, swallowed it like I'd swallowed every insult since I was 8. Veronica turned to me directly. "I hope you're okay back here. We had to squeeze in a lot of last-minute guests, you know?" "No problem," I said calmly. "I'm used to staying in the background." She blinked. A flicker of something passed across her eyes. Then she smiled. "Well, let me know if you need anything," she said, already shifting away. "Restrooms are just behind you." As if I didn't know. As if I hadn't been placed right beside them for a reason. And then came the waiter. Tall, clean-cut, maybe 21. He brought a tray of appetizers to the table, leaned in and whispered, "Sorry, ma'am. The kitchen asked me to prioritize the other side for timing. I'll be back." Then he skipped my plate. Again. I watched him serve the others, mini crab cakes, cucumber tarts, tiny steak skewers. When he passed by again 10 minutes later, he smiled apologetically and said, "Oh, I forgot you were here." Forgot I was here. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased on purpose. During the first toast, the microphone screeched as Veronica's best friend took the stage and launched into a glowing tribute about love, about destiny, about building a life with someone who matches your ambition. Then came the slideshow, a 10-minute reel of childhood photos, family vacations, birthday parties, piano recitals. Veronica smiling, twirling, winning. In almost every frame I wasn't there, and when I was blurry in the corner, out of focus, cropped by design, I looked like a stranger who had wandered into someone else's life. When the lights came back on, my mother leaned over and whispered with a smile, "You always hated photos, remember?" No, I didn't. No one ever asked me to be in them. A little later, a small girl, maybe 5 or 6, niece of the groom, ran up to the table with a half-eaten cookie and pointed at me. "Are you the maid?" she asked, loud and clear. Gasps, nervous laughter. A couple at the next table turned their heads and smirked. My sister appeared almost instantly, scooping up the child with exaggerated sweetness. "No, no, sweetie," she said, laughing. "That's just Aunt Lexi. She's helping out today." I stared at her, straight into her eyes, and in that fraction of a second, something changed in her expression. Just a twitch, not fear, anticipation. That's when it hit me. This wasn't accidental, none of it. The seating, the shade, the jokes, the silence, it had been planned. Carefully, like she was orchestrating one last performance where I would play the role she wrote for me. Invisible, lesser, background filler. And I had shown up, willingly, like a fool. But that was the beauty of strategy. You let the enemy think they're winning. You let them overextend, get cocky, expose themselves. Let them believe the sniper never showed up until the shot's already been fired. At that moment, a waiter came around with another tray of hors d'oeuvres. He offered one to every guest at my table, then paused as he reached me. "Oh," he said, voice uncertain. "Did you already get one?" I met his eyes, held them just long enough to make him shift his weight. "I'm good," I said quietly. "You can move on." And he did, like everyone else always had. Except now, I was watching, taking mental notes, one breath at a time. Because when the room turns cold and cruel, the quiet ones don't freeze, we record. By the time dinner was served, the room was a river of clinking silverware and filtered laughter. I had memorized the rhythm of their indulgence, how Veronica threw back her head at jokes that weren't funny, how my mother touched her pearls whenever someone asked what the other daughter was doing now. I hadn't touched my food. Then came Emma, one of Veronica's college friends. She wore a pale pink dress, too tight for grace and too short for decency, with a glass of something expensive already half empty in her hand. She sauntered over to my table, her heels clacking like declarations. "Lexi, right?" she said, loud enough for 3 tables to hear. "Oh my gosh, you haven't changed a bit." I didn't recognize her, but I nodded. "Still living with your parents?" she asked, laughing. "I remember you said once you'd never settle down in this town. Yet, here we are." She didn't wait for an answer. "Veronica told me you're doing private security now, like bodyguard work. That's badass." I gave her nothing. "Any celebrity clients?" she pushed. "Or just like warehouses and parking lots?" There it was, the smile behind the teeth, the jab laced in admiration. Before I could respond, someone nearby chuckled, my uncle maybe, or one of my father's work friends. He muttered, "Bet she's packing heat under that dress." Laughter rippled, not cruel, just comfortable. The kind of laughter that assumes you won't fight back because you never have. And that's when Veronica raised her glass. "To family," she said, voice ringing through the room. "To loyalty, love, and never forgetting where you came from." Her eyes flicked to me, brief, precise. I lifted my glass of water, held it up. "Cheers." My voice was soft, neutral, but my hand didn't tremble. I was trained not to shake, even when the building around you is crumbling. The next blow didn't come from a stranger. It came from blood. Dinner was winding down. Veronica's husband-to-be had stepped away to speak with the officiant. That's when my father approached me, half drunk, half bored. He wore a blazer, 1 size too large, and the same cologne he'd used since I was a teenager. He didn't sit, just hovered behind my chair, swirling his wine. "You know," he said, "you clean up nice when you try." I tilted my head. He continued, "Shame you never figured that out earlier. Might have made different choices." I blinked once, nothing more. "Not everyone's meant for books and bullets, Lexi," he added. "You were always more hands-on." He meant it as a compliment, maybe. Or maybe it was another reminder that whatever I became, in their eyes, it could only be a reaction, a fluke, a flailing grasp towards something that wasn't meant for someone like me. He left before I could answer, not that I would have. Then came the flower girl. She had big green eyes and frosting on her cheeks. She approached slowly, clutching a small card in her hands. "Aunt Veronica said to give this to you." I opened the card. Inside, in Veronica's familiar script, were 5 words. "Don't ruin this for me." No context, no warmth, just an order. I folded the card and placed it in my clutch. No emotion, no crack in the armour, but my fingers clenched harder than I meant. They wanted to make sure I stayed small, manageable, predictable, powerless. That's why they placed me by the kitchen doors, why no one offered me a single dance. Why, when the photographer passed by my table, he didn't even raise the camera. I wasn't part of the picture. I never had been. And yet, I was still here, still watching, still waiting. The most dangerous person in any room is the one they think doesn't matter. When the microphone made its soft electronic pop again, all heads turned to the stage. Veronica stood beneath a cascade of string lights, flawless, confident, clutching the mic like it belonged to her, because it always had. "Before we move on to dessert," she began, "I just wanted to say a few quick thank yous. Laughter, applause, The crowd loved her. To my parents, your guidance, your love, I'm forever grateful. To my bridesmaids, gorgeous, brilliant, my lifelines. To my husband, Thomas, you are everything. She paused, eyes glinting. And to my sister, Lexi. I wasn't sure if you'd come tonight. Pause. But I'm glad you did. Scattered claps, awkward smiles. You've always walked your own path. Some of us chase dreams in the city, some protect parking lots back home. A chuckle or two. But that's what makes families so diverse, right? This time the crowd laughed louder. And just like that, with a single line, she buried me. Right there, on stage, under lights and applause, she performed her final humiliation, framed it as a toast. Sugar-coated poison. Even my mother laughed. Even the DJ clapped. I didn't. I kept my face blank, my hands still, my eyes locked on hers. And in that moment, she saw it. The part of me she never understood. The silence that wasn't surrender, the stillness that wasn't shame. I let her have her victory, let her glow in it. Because war isn't about the first shot, it's about who's still standing when the smoke clears. The MC returned to the mic, voice chipper, queuing up the next event. Before we open the floor for dancing, we'd like to invite someone very special to say a few words. My name appeared on the screen behind him. Not Lexi, not sister of the bride. Just 2 words. Alexandra Simmons. The laughter stopped. A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. My father sat up straighter. Veronica's smile faltered, and I stood, slowly, one hand brushing the creases from my dress, the other resting, lightly, deliberately, at my side. It was time. I stepped toward the stage with the calm of someone heading into combat, not with bullets, but with silence. The room split like water around me. People parted, chairs scraped. Someone whispered, "Wait! Is she giving a speech?" Veronica's smile twisted at the corners, like a page being torn at the spine. The microphone felt light in my hand, too light. "I wasn't planning to speak," I said, voice steady. "But since my name's on the screen, I suppose someone up there thought it mattered." A few chuckles, nervous, shallow. I scanned the crowd, let my eyes meet every single one of theirs, not rushing, not flinching. I've been away a long time, not just physically, but far enough that most of you forgot I existed. Or maybe you didn't forget. Maybe it was just easier that way. Stillness. That's okay. I've learned how to disappear. I've also learned how to reappear. When it matters. Veronica shifted behind the DJ booth. I could feel her discomfort blooming like heat off pavement. Some of you know me as Lexi, the quiet one, the background sibling, Veronica's shadow. I nodded. But that's not who I am. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small leather case, opened it slowly. Inside, my ID badge. Not from a mall, not from a security firm. U.S. Army Special Operations Command. I held it up. Not high, not for drama, just clearly. A low gasp moved through the crowd like a current. "My name," I said, "is Colonel Alexandra Simmons, U.S. Army. I've served 17 years, 3 deployments, 2 citations for valor, 1 Bronze Star." Silence. And ironically, the person who invited me here tonight wouldn't be alive if I hadn't pulled him out of a burning convoy in Kabul 3 years ago. Murmurs, a shift of air, people turning, looking at the groom. He was standing now, pale, eyes wide. "Wait," someone whispered. "She saved Thomas?" I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. Veronica's face had gone porcelain white. My mother dropped her fork. My father stopped breathing through his nose. I took one final step forward. "So no, I don't protect parking lots. I protect lives." A chair scraped behind me, then footsteps, slow, hesitant. The groom, Thomas, moved to the centre of the room, his face pale but focused. He cleared his throat. His voice, when it came, trembled, but not from weakness. "She's telling the truth." People turned to face him, some mouths already open, some hands frozen mid-toast. 3 years ago, I was stationed in Afghanistan. Convoy got hit. We were trapped. Fire everywhere. Thought it was over. He looked directly at me. And then she came back for us. After pulling out 2 injured soldiers already, she came back, alone, under fire. His voice cracked just for a second. She carried me 1/2 mile. Through sand, through shrapnel, through enemy fire. Didn't leave a single man behind. No one spoke. No one moved. Veronica's face looked like it had forgotten how to form expressions. Thomas turned toward the guests now. "You all think she's the quiet sister, the one who faded away, but she's the reason I'm alive, the reason this wedding even exists." And then he looked at Veronica, long, unblinking. "You knew, didn't you?" Her eyes widened. "What?" "You knew who she was, what she did. I told you." She opened her mouth, closed it, shook her head once, then again, more frantically. "I didn't," she stammered. I thought you were mistaken." "No," Thomas said, voice cold now. "You said, let's not make a big deal out of it." He turned to the crowd again. "She begged me not to mention her rank to anyone at the wedding. Said her family preferred things that way. Said Lexi didn't like attention." Someone in the front row gasped. My mother finally looked at me, not like a mother looks at her child, but like a stranger sees a ghost. And Veronica just stood there, trembling. The truth was out. She had known. Not only known, she'd orchestrated my humiliation anyway. Because deep down, my existence threatened hers. Because no matter how perfect she dressed, posed, and smiled, she could never outshine something real. I let the silence sit. I wanted them to feel it, not the shame, not even the regret, but the weight of truth. Heavy, inevitable, final. Then, with 2 fingers, I pulled a folded envelope from my clutch, thick paper, military seal. "This," I said, holding it up, "arrived 2 weeks ago." The guests watched, breath held. "It's a formal nomination. The Department of Defense is recommending me to lead a multinational command under NATO." Gasps, audible now. "It's not official yet," I continued, "but when it is, I'll be the highest-ranking American woman in that role in over a decade." I paused. And I almost said no. Veronica's lips parted slightly. My mother leaned forward as if trying to undo time. "I almost declined the offer," I repeated, because somewhere deep down a part of me still believed what I was raised to believe. That I wasn't worth remembering, that my absence made things easier, that my silence kept the peace. I thought maybe it was time to disappear again. I let that hang. But then I remembered something. I looked at Veronica, straight through her. The people who try the hardest to silence you are the ones most afraid of your voice. I looked at my parents next, and the family who taught me to be invisible unknowingly trained me to operate in the shadows better than anyone else. A few guests teared up, some looked away, no one laughed. So I came here today to say nothing. Truly, I did. But when humiliation is scripted like theatre, when silence becomes complicity, then speaking becomes an act of war. I stepped back from the microphone, letting the last words echo in the white space between chandeliers and wine glasses. I didn't look at my sister again. I didn't need to. The collapse was complete, not with rage, not with revenge, but with truth, spoken calmly, surgically, with the precision of someone trained to know exactly where to cut and when. I left the microphone on the stand and walked off the stage without applause. No one dared to move, not even the DJ. The only sound in the ballroom was the low hum of the air conditioning and the soft clink of someone setting down their fork too quickly. I passed Veronica. She didn't meet my eyes. Her face was frozen, not with anger or grief, but with something more dangerous. The slow, sinking realization that the script had collapsed and she no longer controlled the narrative. My father stared into his wine. My mother clutched her pearl necklace like it was a lifeline. As I reached the back of the room, someone grabbed my wrist. Gentle, old fingers. Mrs. Holbrook, my grandmother's oldest friend. Her voice trembled. "She would have been proud of you." I blinked. "Who?" "Your Nana," she whispered. "You were all she ever talked about." Something inside me pinched. "She wanted to see you, wrote you letters, hundreds, but your mother said it would upset the family." I stood there, frozen. The silence in my throat wasn't strength this time. It was grief. Not loud, not dramatic, just a tight knot at the base of the ribcage that wouldn't unravel. "She kept a picture of you in uniform," Mrs. Holbrook added, "even had it framed, said, 'That one's my fighter.'" I nodded once, didn't cry, didn't move, just received it. Because sometimes vindication doesn't roar. Sometimes it just walks up to you on trembling legs and offers truth like a folded letter that should have arrived years ago. Outside, the sun had started to dip. That golden hour glow made the hotel's marble steps look like something out of a movie. But I wasn't in a movie, I was walking out of a war zone. My car was waiting at the curb, engine quietly humming. As I slid into the back seat, the driver glanced up through the rearview mirror. "You good, Colonel?" I looked at him. Donnelly, former logistics sergeant, loyal to the bone. "Yeah," I said. "Drive." We pulled away slowly. Through the tinted window, I watched the entrance to the ballroom shrink behind me. One by one, people spilled out, faces pale, mouths half open, phones already out. They were texting, whispering, digesting, but no one chased me. No one called my name. I didn't expect them to. I leaned back in the seat, legs stretched out, arms folded. There was something I hadn't told anyone, not even Donnelly. 2 weeks ago, the day after I received the NATO nomination, I almost filed my resignation. I had the letter written, typed, formatted. All that was missing was the signature, because I was tired, not battlefield tired, soul tired, tired of being the strong one, the quiet one, the misunderstood one. The woman who could lead a black ops unit through the Hindu Kush but couldn't get her own mother to return a phone call. I had planned to walk away, buy a small cabin somewhere, read books I missed, learn to bake, maybe adopt a dog, a quiet, invisible ending to a loud, invisible life. But something changed, not because they finally saw me, not because I needed revenge, but because I realized I didn't want to leave like this. I didn't want them to be the reason I disappeared again. That ballroom was never my battlefield, but the world still is. And I'm not done fighting. 3 days later, I was back on base. Same uniform, same boots, same rhythm of steel and silence. But I wasn't the same. Something in me had settled, not like dust, like armour. I was in my office going through briefings when the knock came. Donnelly stepped in, holding a slim folder and a coffee. "Ma'am, command confirmed. It's official." He handed me the paper. I didn't need to read it. I already knew. The nomination had gone through. In 2 months, I would be deployed again, this time as the lead commander in a NATO unit spanning 5 nations. A woman who, once upon a time, was told she was too much for the family dinner table. Now tasked with managing global conflict strategy. Funny, isn't it? I took the coffee, sipped once, then looked out the window. Morning drills had started. The cadence calls echoed sharp across the parade ground. "You still want to do this, Colonel?" Donnelly asked gently. "More than ever." He nodded, didn't press. Before he left, he paused at the door. "By the way, about the wedding." I raised an eyebrow. "The clip's already circulating. The one where you hold up your badge and say, 'I don't protect parking lots.' People are calling it the quietest mic drop of the decade." I couldn't help it. I smiled. Not for pride, for clarity. "Let them talk," I said. "I'm done being silent." When he left, I stood alone for a moment. Just me, Alexandra Simmons, daughter of a house that never heard her, sister to a woman who tried to bury her, soldier of a country that didn't always know what to do with women like me, and still. I rose. Not for revenge, not for recognition, but for the girl I used to be, the one who folded letters she never sent, the one who trained in shadows, the one who now walked in light.